Have you ever thought about taking your Google Sheet and converting it into a web application format, more specifically like a JSON data that you can use in your web application? If you thought about that and you thought, oh my God, that is not possible, it is a lot easier than you think to make it happen into your web application. So let's just say I have this little sales fictitious data that I have here and I want to convert it into a JSON format so that I can use it into my web application. And then what I can do is I create this little application and just to show you, I'll just say limit 2, which means it's only going to show me the first 2 records. I'm going to click on fetch data. It's going to go to Google Sheets behind the scenes via the Google API. And then it's going to fetch this data. Then I can use this JSON array data and display it anywhere, which way I wanted to. And obviously, if I wanted to also, I could do a CRUD operation, which means update, delete it from the Google Sheet, and so on and so forth. And then that's it. If that's something you are interested in learning how to do that in your web applications, stick around because you're going to learn, and it's a lot easier than you may think. And don't worry, I will leave a link in the description for you so you can download this code, implement it into your project extremely easily. And that goes without further ado that if you like the kind of videos I'm putting on, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you are up to date and all the wonderful, amazing things that I put out, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on that. So let's get on with this particular project over here. And let's start off with particularly this application right here, the HTML. I'll just show you right here. It's pretty basic. So if I refresh the page, it's just going to have this empty block right here. They'll say enter a URL and then key parameter, which means if you want to filter something. And at the bottom over here, it's going to just show you the result of that. So just show you, I'll go over here, right click, and there's nothing really fancy going on. It's pretty standard. And if you ever build yourself a web application, you know it's pretty standard thing here. I'm using a Bootstrap and a jQuery, and that's it. Nothing major going on in here. So I don't think I need to go into too much detail because it's literally one box, 2 box, button, and a thing in here. That's that. But the majority of the magic that really happens is in over here. And like I said, don't worry, I will leave a link in the description for you to download the project so that makes it easy for you to play around with it, right? So you can create your own little Google Sheet, and that's that. So let's hop on over to the Google Sheet. And I'm going to zoom out it because it's way too much. And let's just say you have whatever data you have in here, right? You have multiple different sheets, and each sheet may be something that within your application require a certain kind of showing, filtering, whatever thing it is. But for the sake of my particular application right here, it's just gonna fetch it, show it here, and that's that. And that's what I'll show you how to do that. All right, so you got your data right here, and then you go to extensions, and you're gonna go to app script. And once in here, then that's where your magic is going to happen. And only thing you need to worry about is up until line 37. Anything below that, you don't need to worry about it because I made it pretty standard. Basically, what these two function does is this function is just going to connect to the sheet. Like your MySQL databases when you're using PHP, which I use to connect to my databases. And it's pretty standard operation in there. So that's all that's happening here. You put in the sheet name and this function will do the rest, which means it's going to find the sheet that you're currently working on right here. And then it's going to go ahead and deploy it, meaning get the information that it needs, which would be the sheet ID, sheet name. It's going to turn it into a connection string, if you will, and return it back. And this one, all it's going to do is get you the last populated row. What the hell does that mean, Mark? Meaning, let's just say column number 1. whatever the last populated row entry is. In this case, it will be row 24, which has 23. It's going to get you this row, and that's that. That's all it is, but you don't need to worry about it because I made it easy for you. All you gotta do is just copy these two functions and roll with it in your Google Sheets projects. And then meat and potato, what really happens is in here. So this is the function that Google Apps Script uses in order for it to communicate through the outside of its environment. So you need to have that. It's called do get. And then it could take a parameter. I just call it request, sake of simplicity, I guess. And then within this parameter, I can say request and then parameter and whatever that thing I wanted to call. In this case, I wanted to call data limit, which I can put in here and set a value to it. And then for sake of simplicity, I call this data limit and turn it into a JavaScript variable. And Google Sheets, if you didn't know, if this is the first time you're ever playing with it, behind scenes is plain JavaScript, which makes it so much easier for us to utilize the power of Google Apps Script. And then I said I'm gonna say all number of rows that I want to fetch, so on and so forth. And then we're gonna go over here. Let's just undo this, and then we're gonna go over here and then set the variable to be sheet, which is going to connect to the current worksheet workbook. And then within this workbook Excel file, or rather Google file, and then this is the tab that has the data, which I just called it sales data. And that's where I'm going to put in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call another function that's already part of the Google App Script. Is called get range, and I want to say from A2 to H, and whatever the last row is, get all the values. So let's hop on back over to the Google Sheets. So A2, which will be over here, and then all the way down in column H, wherever the last row that has the data. Get that, all of this. So everything that's selected is going to grab all of this and then set it to this value called values. And then I have another object, that a variable that just has array, and I'm going to loop through all of these rows. So let's just say row 1, row 2, row 3, so on and so forth. And then for each row, I wanted to make sure it has a value, meaning that if it goes to here, which it never should, but in case it does, it's not going to include empty rows. All right, so then what I want to do is I want to loop through all the rows, and then it's going to be row number, column number 0. So for example, over here, so we have column A, B, C, D, all the way through H. So when I'm on this row, this right over here will be considered 0 value. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And that's what we are going to assign it, the value and the row number, and each of those columns have this value. In your sheet, it may be different. You can call whatever number you have. You may only have up until 4 columns, or you could have more, but you can adjust it for your application. And then what I did was I assigned a JSON object name and then the value to it. Name, the value to it, so on and so forth. And I'm pushing it into a array, which is output. And when I'm done with it, and then I'm gonna say, hey, if this particular data, a point, limit, parameter, if it's not set to all, which means it's has a values of something like 1 row, 2 row, 3 row, 4 rows, so on and so forth, then I wanted to do this, which is pretty much content service, which is part of the Google Apps Scripts function. And then I want to make an output, and I want to turn it into a JSON array object right over here. And then this particular function right here, it just limits the number of rows that is going to return. So I'm going to say start from 0, and then the limit, whatever the limit that is set over here. And then it's going to only show you those rows. So let's say if the limit over here is set to, I don't know, 1, 2, 4, 5, so on and so forth. And that's what is going to happen. But if it's not, which means if this is blank, give me everything that's in the sheet. So all 23 rows that I can actually use it into my web application. All right. And that's what's going to happen in here. That being said, that's how we do it. And next phase is how do you actually get the damn API so you can put it in here and test it out yourself. So what do you do is go over to the deploy, and I'll do it again for you, and go to new deployment. And once you do that, and you can call it whatever you want, like I'm just gonna call this v2.120 whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. And then make sure that you set this access to anyone, otherwise it's not going to work in your web application. And same thing goes in here when you're doing the share thing. Make sure you set it to anyone with the link and make it an editor. Otherwise your Google Sheet will not allow your application to fetch data, edit data, delete data, or update data, any of that stuff. So you have to make it a editor. There you go. Editor, anyone who has a link. That's it. And then that's that. And then over here, anyone who has access. That could be anyone. And then you click deploy. And then you will get this long ass URL. All you're going to do is copy this, put it in here. And first, what I'll do is this. I am not going to put any parameters. And I expect to get all of these 23 rows. So let's just do that. Fetching, and let's see. We got row number 1 with the JSON data. 1 object, 2 object, 3 object, 4, 5. Last one is 23 row. And now I just want to say go over here. And I'm going to close this out. And I want to take this parameter. And I'm going to set that to only get 2 rows. And I'm going to fetch the data. And there you go. Now you have 2 rows of data. Now, question becomes, should you really use this in your application? My recommendation, I wouldn't personally use it in my project unless there was a specific need for it. For like any other project, I would never want to use this. This is just for education purposes in case you want to use it for your own specific need for something that you are working on. But I would never use this. The reason why, I'll tell you this. Go over here. I'll show you how long it actually takes for it to actually get the information that you want. So let's just say this is only 2 rows, right? And then I'm going to click on fetch data. It's going to go to the Google's environment. It's going to go look for the sheet. Then it's going to go process it. And then it's going to come back in here. And it takes the whole trip to be at 206 milliseconds. It's not a lot, but if you got a lot of data, let's just say, I don't know, I'm just going to say 20 rows, right? And then you just waiting. It's about 1 second of, oh, let me just do this again. Just so you see. Waiting for about almost 1.5 seconds. And then it gets the data. So we're talking almost about, give or take, depending on the traffic and the person's internet connection, 2 to 3 seconds. I don't know if you want to wait that long. I would never want to wait that long. I mean, it doesn't seem that much, but if I click on this, just to show you, I'm going to click over here and the page just goes fetch. It doesn't seem right, 2 or 3 seconds. I mean, if your application can, if your users who are viewing or using your application, it can wait about 2 or 3 seconds. And this is only for 20 rows. If you got like 1,000 plus, you can only imagine how long the person is going to have to wait before they actually get the data. And then if you have to make adjustments, so on and so forth, blah, 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 you get the point, right? But if you have a small, very small application that requires not a lot of data, then yes, please go on, by all means use this. And you can easily use that. And I am going to make another video that will show you how to do the CRUD operation. But this one, if you can use this and kind of you can figure it out on your own, it's fairly simple. I mean, I showed you how to connect to the sheet. I showed you how to push the data to your API key. I showed you how to use the parameter to do that. And then this is the parameter that I call. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you want to have another parameter called edit, and then whatever the edit fields are, you could put that in here. So you could have 4 different parameter. One of them would be for calling, and another one is for making edits, and then call it like a call type edit, right? And then you can have another one called parameter call. This is the data I want you to update. So what that means, I want you to go to row number, line number something, and then edit the name person this to be something else or whatever. That's fairly easy thing to do, and that's what I'm gonna clear it on in the future. If there's a high demand, if you want me to create it, just leave a comment below, and I will definitely create that for you. All right, if you enjoy this and if you do want to see more of these amazing videos, do subscribe. Otherwise, you are going to miss out on these amazing videos.